Hi, it's midnight and you're watching Nightline with me, Muhammed Hamdan. The top stories. Malaysia will continue to fight for Palestinians' freedom without fear. And Tasik Gelugo MP expected to face 15 charges under UMLA on Wednesday. Good morning. We begin with this headlining story. Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim claimed he had been threatened by Western powers who wanted him to tone down his criticism of the Israeli government following the war in Gaza. The Prime Minister, however, stressed that he is not afraid of threats from those who support Israel and will continue to fight for the freedom of Palestinians without fear. He also denounced Western governments that backed Tel Aviv despite the atrocities, describing them to be the very heart of barbarism.
Don't ever think of threatening us. Malaysia is a fiercely independent country. We decide what is right. We understand the meaning of freedom. We are with the Palestinian people in their struggle. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow, inshallah.
Anwar said this in his speech at the Malaysia Stands with Palestine rally held at Axiata Arena in Bukit Jalil, Kuala Lumpur on Tuesday night. Some 15,000 people from all walks of life came to the event despite the evening rain, many wearing white clothes to show their solidarity with the Palestinians who have suffered from the brutal attacks by Israel. The Jalur Gemilang and the Palestinian flag could be seen everywhere, with the crowd chanting "Free Palestine" and condemning the Zionist regime. The gathering began with a mass prayer, followed by a series of speeches by various individuals, including refugees, as well as religious and political leaders throughout the rally. Meanwhile, the Conference of Rulers strongly condemned any form of violence, oppression and cruelty of the Israeli Zionist regime against the Palestinian people. The keeper of the ruler's seal, Tan Sri Syed Daniel Syed Ahmad, said the Conference of Rulers also expressed disappointment as the international community and the world's major powers have not reached a consensus on finding a solution to stop the conflict. He added the Palestinian-Israeli conflict was discussed at the pre-meeting session of the 262nd meeting of the Conference of Rulers at the Istana Negara on Tuesday. Syed Daniel also said at the pre-meeting session, the Conference of Rulers also expressed support and stood firm with the Malaysian government's stance over the years that the Palestinian people must be given back the absolute right to freedom from the illegal Israeli occupation of Palestine. The rulers also called on the people to continue to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people and extend any form of humanitarian aid to ease their burden and suffering. Its General Assembly President Dennis Francis announced that the organisation will convene the 39th plenary meeting of the 10th Emergency Special Session of the Assembly in New York on Thursday. He said the meeting had been requested by Jordan as the chair of the Arab group and by Mauritania as the chair of the Organisation for Islamic Cooperation. Similar requests were also made by Russia, Syria, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Maldives, Timor-Leste, Vietnam and Brunei. The emergency assembly session comes after the UN Security Council failed to agree on a resolution concerning the war. The Russian draft, which sought a humanitarian pause, was rejected by the US, Britain and France for lacking a specific reference to Hamas, while a draft by Brazil was vetoed by the US for lacking reference to Israel's right to self-defense. Now, as the world continues to condemn the atrocities against the Palestinians, the Zionist regime resumed their bombings in Gaza Strip on Tuesday, killing more than 704 Palestinians. According to Hamas, at least 140 Palestinians were killed in Israeli airstrikes in northern Gaza's Al-Shati refugee camp. An overnight Israeli airstrike also hit a 4-story residential building in Khan Yunis, killing at least 32 people and left many others injured. The Zionist regime also struck a market in the Nuseirat neighborhood, one of the biggest markets that refugees relied on to buy their supplies, and buildings close to the Al-Wafa hospital in Gaza, injuring several people. Its air raids also targeted several locations in Lebanon, including Ramesh, Markaba, Hula, Shaba'a and Kafr Shuba. As of Tuesday, the death toll in Gaza has risen to at least 5,791 Palestinians, while more than 16,297 have been left injured. The Israeli bombardment of Gaza has left thousands dead and thousands more displaced. For many Palestinians living in Malaysia, there is fear and anxiety over the fate of loved ones back home. But there is also the comfort that comes from the support of Malaysians. FMT's Danish Rajareza and Amir Fakri have the details.
Yesterday, they called my family that you have to get out from the house because we want to bomb our house. So they literally bombed the whole house.
As a student, Ahmad Loai's biggest concern should be his studies. But the young Palestinian's mind is filled with worry over the fate of his family back home in Gaza, a home that has come under heavy bombing by Israeli forces. Since the bombing began, over 5,000 civilians, including women and children, have lost their lives. A further 600,000 Gazans have been displaced with little place to go in an area roughly the size of Georgetown, Penang. As harrowing images from the violence emerge, Palestinians in Malaysia like Ahmad can only watch the developments in Gaza with heavy hearts. But for many in the community, there is some comfort to be found in the steadfast support of Malaysians, from the man in the street to the highest levels of government.
They support the Palestinian since long time. So yeah, we feel it. We feel it with people, the normal people, I mean the ordinary people on the streets. We feel it with the government, of course. They always support us.
In recent weeks, protesters from all walks of life have turned up by the thousands at multiple rallies to show their support for Palestinians. Many adorned themselves with the red, green, and black of the Palestinian flag. And the support for Palestine doesn't just come from the ground.
So far, as an ambassador, I met with the speaker, I met with the prime minister, with the foreign minister, with the chief senate, everybody, all those officials and non-officials, they never stopped showing their support and solidarity to Palestine. Malaysia never changed and will never change in terms of their continuous support to Palestine.
The support of Malaysians means a lot, considering how bad the situation is on the ground.
No single meter in Gaza is immune or safe. Everybody is actually suffering over there. The very basic humanitarian needs in Gaza is completely shortage. No medicine, no food, no water, no shelter.
While it's said, Palestinians in Malaysia are grateful for the support they've received and hopes people will not forget about their plight.
Just keep the Palestinian cause in your hearts. Just continue your support to Palestine and the Palestinians. And all in all, we look for the day when we will host you and welcome you in our capital, in Al-Quds, in Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, inshallah.
Danish Rajareza and Amir Fakri, FMT for Nightline.
At the Dewan Rakyat, Datuk Sri Saifuddin Nasution Ismail stressed that the ban on raising banners criticising Israeli leaders and chanting takbir at a peaceful Freedom for Palestine gathering last Sunday is not the position of the government. The Home Minister said the ban is at the discretion of the organisers, who are responsible for ensuring peace and public order.
Soal dibenarkan, tidak dibenarkan, takbir dan sebagainya, saya tak fikir itu isu utamanya. Ya, saya Muslim, takbir artinya melaungkan tentang kebesaran Allah Ta'ala. Tak ada khilaf di antara kita. Hal ini adalah bagaimana penganjur itu. Okay? Mengikut budi bicara mereka dan kefahaman mereka. Itu aja. Macam boleh anjurkan 10-20 ribu besok, takbirlah. Ya, kalau saya ada masa, saya ikut serta, saya akan takbir sekuat-kuatnya. Itu saya ingat konteks.
He said this in response to a supplementary question by Machang MP, one Ahmad Faisal, one Ahmad Kamal, who wanted to know whether the government has issued guidelines on what should not be said in a peaceful demonstration. Saifuddin added that existing acts, such as the Penal Code, the Sedition Act 1948, and the Communications and Multimedia Act are sufficient in managing a public gathering. On Sunday, participants of the peaceful Freedom for Palestine rally condemned the event's organizer, who allegedly banned the gathering from chanting takbir and called for the removal of a banner displaying images of condemnation of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Moving on, the National Biodiversity Council, NBC, must be further empowered as the primary platform to strengthen policies and strategies for biodiversity conservation at the national level. According to Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, the proposed establishment of the Malaysia Biodiversity Centre, MBC, as a national centre of excellence for biodiversity would also complement biodiversity management initiatives at the state level.
Justru bagi memperkukuh dan merancangkan agenda pemeliharaan kepelbagaian biologi di negara ini, beberapa inisiatif telah diambil di berbagai peringkat seperti penubuhan pasukan petugas kebangsaan bagi konservasi harimau Malaya (MIDF) oleh NRECC, Majlis Biodiversity Pahang, Sarawak Biodiversity Centre dan Sabah Biodiversity Centre.
Anwar said this in his speech read out by Natural Resources, Environment and Climate Change Minister Nik Nazmi Nik Ahmad at the opening of the National Biodiversity Conference and the launching of the National Biodiversity Policy DKBK 2022 to 2030 in Putrajaya on Tuesday. At the same time, the Prime Minister also suggested that state governments develop biodiversity plans in line with the country's newly launched policy on biodiversity conservation. Now, Lynas Malaysia's operating license has been renewed, allowing the company to continue importing and processing rare earths until March 2026. Science, Technology and Innovation Minister Chang Lee Kang said the extension would allow the continuation of the Australian rare earths producers' cracking and leaching activities in Malaysia, subject to certain conditions. Speaking at a media conference on Tuesday, Chang pointed out that the extension is contingent on Lynas ensuring the radioactive content in water leach purification WLP residue is below 1 becquerel per gram. He also said the decision was made by the Atomic Energy Licensing Board AELB based on preliminary laboratory findings indicating that thorium radioactive elements can be extracted from WLP residues, allowing them to be released from legal controls under the Atomic Energy Licensing Act.
So it gels well with our initial intention, which is to not allow continuous accumulation of radioactive waste. But with this technology, thorium extraction, they are not going to produce any radioactive waste in the future.
With this development, Chang added that the operations comply with legal controls and protect the interests of the people. Subsequently, the country will be able to attract high-value investments in the local rare earth industry to support the manufacturing industry of advanced high-tech materials. Datuk Wan Saiful Wan Jan is set to face fresh money laundering charges. According to sources, the former Bersatu Information Chief is expected to face 15 charges under Section 4, Subsection 1B of the Anti-Money Laundering, Anti-Terrorism Financing and Proceeds of Unlawful Activities Act 2001 or UMLA. Earlier, Wan Saiful said he has received instructions to present himself at the Kuala Lumpur Sessions Court at 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday. The Tasik Gulugor MP had before this been hit with 2 corruption-related charges over the Jana Wibawa scheme. On February 21st, he claimed trial to accepting nearly 7 million ringgit in bribes from one Lian Tan Chuan as an incentive to help Nepturi Sdn Bhd to obtain the Central Spine Road project from the government. He was also charged with soliciting bribes for a road project worth 232 million ringgit. Wave of violent attacks kills 24 in Mexico. News from the foreign front right after this break. Welcome back. Thousands of women across Iceland, including its Prime Minister, went on strike on Tuesday to push for an end to unequal pay and gender-based violence. Prime Minister Katrín Jakobsdóttir said that she would stay home as part of the women's strike and expect for other women in her cabinet to do the same. Across the nation, schools and libraries were either closed or operated on limited hours as female staff stayed home, while hospitals said they would only handle emergency cases. Despite ranking first in the world for gender equality by the World Economic Forum, 40% of women in the country experience gender-based discrimination and sexual violence in their lifetime. Three separate armed attacks in Mexico on Monday left at least 24 people dead, including a dozen police officers, in the most recent wave of violence to hit regions plagued by drug trafficking. In the most severe attack, unidentified assailants struck a security patrol in Guerrero State's municipality of Coyuca de Benítez, shooting dead 11 municipal police officers. And in the state of Michoacán, just north of Guerrero, gunmen killed 5 people while targeting the brother of a local mayor who was injured in the assault. According to the regional government, in the third attack in the rural community of San Miguel Canoa, a gun battle between alleged drug dealers killed at least 6 and wounded 2. The attacks came as Mexico continues to grapple with the devastating impact of cartel-linked crime, with over 420,000 people murdered since the initiation of the government's war on drugs in 2006. sports football, the AFC Champions League Super League champions Johor Darul Takzim JDT suffered their biggest defeat of the season in a 1-3 loss to 10-man Ulsan Hyundai at the Munsu Stadium in South Korea on Tuesday. Ulsan went on a blitz in the first half with goals from skipper Jung Seong-hyun in the 5th minute and a brace from Swede winger Gustav Ludvigsson at 12th and 18th minute to leave the Southern Tigers bewildered. Ulsan were reduced to 10 men in the 36th minute after their defender Kim Tae-hwan was sent off after a second booking for a foul on Corbin Ong. JDT hit back with Bergson da Silva scoring from inside the box in the 53rd minute, but the Korean League One champions quickly regrouped and shored up their defense. With the win, Ulsan stood in second in Group I with 6 points after 3 matches, while JDT in third place with 3 points. And on to tennis, the 2023 Vienna Open, Alexander Zverev eased into the last 16 after beating Sebastian Ofner of Austria in a straight sets. The 5th-seeded German beat home wildcard Ofner 6-4, 6-1 in the first round of the tournament as he looks to strengthen his bid to reach the ATP finals for a 6th time in 7 years. The 26-year-old did not face a break point, taking 23 of 26 of his first serve points to cruise through after 1 hour and 19 minutes. Zverev will face Cameron Norrie for a place in the quarterfinals. GLC CEO charged with conspiring and receiving bribe. The details when Nightline returns. Back. The Prevention of Crime Act 1959, also known as POCA, has been a highly contentious topic for years. But how does reinstating POCA help police with their investigations? FMT's Natasha Buse and Faisal Ashraf have the report.
If there is one thing crime shows don't show you, it's that cracking a case takes longer than a 40-minute-long episode. Police probes can stretch for days, months, or even years. The more complex the case, the harder it gets. Now, where TV shows get it right is that suspects and witnesses aren't always cooperative. The same happens in real life, and the police need more time to interrogate suspects. This is why Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Razaruddin Hussein recently said the police needed the Prevention of Crime Act, or POCA, to tackle organized crime. POCA is not a new law and has been around since 1959. It allows the police to detain suspects for up to 59 days without trial. However, the law was struck down after a 2022 federal court ruled that sections of POCA were unconstitutional as they violated the doctrine of separation of powers. Crime analyst Mizan Aslam says the reality is that the current 48-hour remand period is simply not enough for police, especially when it comes to fighting organized crime.
We need POCA because it is not an easy job for the police especially to to gather all of the information. Then we arrest them, and within 48 hours, we charge them at the court. So it's not that easy anymore.
Another crime analyst, Shankar Durairaja, has a similar view on the importance of POCA. This is especially the case with the rise of cybercrime.
We need to understand cybercrime is not easy. Even to investigate a cybercrime is not easy because all the evidences are digital evidences, okay, which will take time to analyze. You need to identify the IP address, then you need to track the location. From there, you need to identify the suspect. Okay, sometimes the cyber investigation can take time. So during this, during this investigation period and so on, the suspect or the mastermind can escape from the authority.
But there's still the issue that some of POCA's provisions are problematic. So what's the way forward? Shankar believes there should be a review of POCA in its current form.
I think we need to do a review, okay, proper review, include the experts, bar council and so on. So there was few issues related to this particular act. So all that need to be rectified. Then is everything okay, then we can implement.
Natasha Bust and Faisal Ashraf, FMT for Nightline.
And lastly, in Negeri Sembilan, a chief executive officer of a government-linked company was charged with 2 counts of abetment in accepting 350,000 ringgit in bribes. Muhammad Zamri Sulaiman, 52, pleaded not guilty to both charges, which were read before Seremban Sessions Court Judge Mio Sulaiman Ahmad Tarmizi on Tuesday. The charge stated that Zamri abetted with Anwar Mat Isa, 54, to accept 2 bribes of 250,000 ringgit and 100,000 ringgit from a man. This was to help appoint a company to conduct the upgrades of the mechanical and electrical systems at Complex Bangunan Getah Asli for the Malaysian Rubber Board in Kuala Lumpur. The offences were allegedly committed at a bank in Senawang, Seremban on June 1st and October 11th, 2022. Zamri was charged under Section 28, Subsection 1C of the MACC Act 2009, read together with Section 16A of the same Act. The offences are punishable by imprisonment of up to 20 years and a fine of not less than 5 times the sum or value of the gratification or 10,000 ringgit, whichever is higher, upon conviction. In the same court, Anwar pleaded not guilty to 2 charges of accepting bribes amounting to 350,000 ringgit via a cheque into his bank account. The court set 5,000 ringgit bail for each of the men and for them to submit their passports to the court and report to the nearest MACC office on the first Saturday of every month. The court set December 12th for mention for both accused. Line draws to a close this time around. Malaysia remains steadfast in fighting for the rights of all Palestinians and against the atrocities of the Zionist regime. May Allah protect all Palestinians and ease their suffering. I'm Muhammed. Hamdan. Thanks for watching and take care.